mode.
Welcome to our webinar. Our webinar today will focus on Fast Track Routes to undergraduate degrees in elite universities. We'll look at the use of pathway programs. I am your speaker today, and my name is Rhian Thomas. I've been born and brought up and educated in the UK and have spent most of my career to date working in the UK university sector. I've been travelling to India since 2002 and 3 years ago moved to New Delhi to work with the Chopras to help Indian students make the right choices about their future education options and potential career paths. Today we'll be looking at pathway programs, and the webinar will cover the following issues. We'll be looking at some of the most popular pathway programs. We'll be looking at the countries that these pathway programs lead into. We'll be looking at the universities that they lead into. And we'll be looking at some of the upcoming pathway programs. Pathway programs today are very big business. A large number of universities, certainly in the UK and increasingly in other countries, are offering pathway programs to students as a means of getting and doing well in their degree programs. Pathway programs are becoming increasingly important and are therefore becoming an increasingly popular route for international students to gain admission in an overseas university. But what are pathway programs? Pathway programs are programs that essentially prepare students for entry into an overseas institution. They come in a range of different shapes and sizes. They cover a range of different countries, a range of different courses, different levels, and a range of different institutions. I should say including some of the world's best institutions. But regardless of the country, the university, or the course that the pathway offers, the one common thing about pathway programs is that they are all designed to provide students a platform that will enable them to accomplish success at university. Our focus today is on pathways as a potential route into undergraduate degrees in elite universities, some of the world's best institutions worldwide. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions among students about pathways. But before I address some of these misconceptions, let me give you what I think is quite a remarkable statistic. Just to give you an idea of the scale of pathway programs in the United Kingdom alone, there are more than 20,000 students taking pathway programs of one type or another. And whilst we'll come on to this a little later, I should also let you know that there are various reports which predict that in the future, the vast majority of students will go to an overseas institution through a pathway program. Some people think that pathways are really only for those who are not academically driven. Others think that they are a second-rate option, perhaps, for entry into lower-grade universities that offer limited opportunities. The reality, however, is very, very different. For many students, pathways are an absolute ideal way to get entry into the most suitable course in the most suitable country. And countries that offer pathways include the UK, US, Australia, Canada, Ireland, Singapore, Malaysia, the list goes on. But essentially, they offer good opportunities for students to get into the most suitable universities. Now, pathways are excellent opportunities for students to get into some of the best universities worldwide. These include the very top universities in the UK, the US, Australia, and many other countries. And that too, in many instances, into the second year. So students can get directly into the second year after they've done a pathway program. Now, there are two different types of pathways available for those seeking an overseas university degree. Both have their own merits and will depend on what the student is actually looking for and their individual circumstances. The two types of pathway programs that I'm referring to here. The first is an on-campus pathway. Now, these on-campus pathways are usually delivered on a specific university campus, be it in the UK, the US, Australia, or wherever, and provide progression to a specific university upon successful completion of the pathway program. The advantage, of course, of on-campus pathway programs are that students are studying on campus and are part of the university from the beginning of the pathway course. The second type of pathway program, which is a rather innovative and interesting route, and one that actually is becoming increasingly popular with students, not just in India but worldwide, and that is what is called a transnational pathway program. Now, this type of pathway allows students to study for a specified period in their own country, and in this instance, we would also say in India, and then progress onto a university overseas. Now, the advantage of a transnational pathway program versus an on-campus pathway program is that many of these pathways, especially the one that we will talk about a little later today, allow students a wider range of options in terms of institutions to which they can progress. It also goes without saying that with a transnational pathway, there is a significant cost-saving element inbuilt into this route, because students will study the first year in their home country, or however many years in their home country, and will only thereafter progress to an international university. Now, I have a question for our listeners today, and I'd be grateful if you could mark your answers accordingly. I'll carry on, but please read the question and mark your answers accordingly. Now, we've established that students can do either an on-campus or a transnational pathway program, the on-campus being at the university itself, and the transnational pathway being studying the first year in their home country and then progressing into the second year of an overseas institution. I will also look at the benefits of each of these. So let us now look at some of the most popular types of pathway programs that are available worldwide, be they on-campus or transnational pathways. Now, the first and perhaps one of the most sought-after pathway routes is what is commonly called a diploma or an advanced diploma. Now, on your slide, you will see that that is marked as the advanced route. The terminology can vary somewhat, but in a nutshell, students who study this type of pathway program are guaranteed access to the second year in a university overseas at the end of their pathway. What this essentially means is that there is no time lost, no extra year spent, and critically, no extra tuition fee. And the best news here is that many of the elite universities worldwide, and I'll name just a few, if we look at the UK, we could look at some of the Russell Group universities such as Newcastle University or Exeter University. If we look at Canada, we'd be looking at the likes of Western Ontario. If we look at Australia perhaps, we'd be looking at ANU, La Trobe, UTS, some of the very best universities that you could get worldwide. And these offer a diploma route into the second year of their bachelor's degree. Now, the second type of pathway program is what we call a foundation route. This is a term I'm sure that conjures up all sorts of negative thoughts in people's minds. But let me try and dispel the myths that surround foundation programs. The reality is that a foundation program is actually an excellent way for students who may not have done so well in their year 12, but who are actually aspiring for admission to one of the elite universities. Yes, foundation routes do generally mean one extra year of study, but they also provide a student with an excellent preparation for their degree, and would also mean and very often mean that a student can get access to a higher ranked university than they would have got otherwise. The other thing that you should note here is that studying a foundation program does give you a very good preparation for your studies overseas. And I speak from experience when I say that in the university that I have worked, students who come in on a foundation route and then progress onto a degree program generally tend to do better than those students who have come directly into the university. That is because they've had time to settle in, they've had time to learn the methodologies that overseas universities use to teach. They've got used to their environment, and all of this combined means that they generally perform better in their overall degree. Now, here are some interesting statistics for you. The pie chart on the left of your screen represents 100% of the international students that studied in the UK in 2013 and 2014. You'll see that almost 43% entered their university through a pathway program. Now, out of this 43%, just over 33% studied a transnational pathway, meaning that they studied part of their degree in a country other than the UK before moving to the UK to complete their studies. I think what this clearly demonstrates, therefore, is that pathways are a very, very popular and very common means of entering universities. Whilst this slide provides information specifically about the UK, pathways are in no ways unique to the UK and can help students who are looking for a whole range of other countries that we've already touched upon. So I think what this slide actually does is just give you a feel for the number of students that are entering universities through pathway programs. So why might you consider a pathway program? Let's look at some of the reasons why students might consider pathway programs and the sorts of students that will benefit from pathway route. There are multiple reasons, and as you will see in the slide, the first reason, and this reason is a very, very popular reason to choose pathways, and that is for students who, for whatever reason, may not have done so well in their 12th year examinations and may now find their choice of university more limited. But by entering a pathway program, they will have the opportunity to target a higher ranked university than they would have done otherwise. Many pathways, as we already have here, will allow students to go directly into the second year after completing their pathway, and thus no additional time is needed. And I think the best thing about this is that the progression that this allows into university will allow progression into some of the elite universities worldwide, again into the second year directly. Many of these universities will also appear in the rankings that a number of you will hear about, such as the QS rankings or the Times Higher Education rankings. Now, what is the second reason that you might consider a pathway program? Well, pathways are an ideal route for students who don't have a clear direction of what course exactly they want to do. Now, for these students, pathways are an ideal way to give them the time, the space, and the knowledge they need to make the right decisions about their future. Pathway programs exist in a very, very large number of universities worldwide, especially so in the UK. Students are generally guaranteed progression to one specific university, but can also use their pathway to transfer to any number of other universities, because universities worldwide do tend to recognize pathway routes as a quality qualification. As I say, there is generally a guarantee into one specific university in one specific country, but we know many students that use their pathway qualification to move into universities other than the one that they had originally planned for. Now, pathway programs are also an ideal route for students who are considering a change of stream. We very often come across students, for example, who perhaps have gone into engineering or into science, but have subsequently found that the fit is just not there for them. So pathways are a great way for these types of students to change streams and move ahead in life with something perhaps that they are a little more passionate about. And finally, pathways provide a very valuable and personally I feel underestimated impact of pathways is that they actually help international students with a transition from their own education system to that of an overseas university. I think what you all need to remember is that the method of teaching and learning in India is very, very different to overseas. And a pathway can provide, I suppose, an easy and seamless transition from the Indian education system to the education system that most of you will experience when you go overseas. Now, we've talked about elite universities and pathways that allow access into elite universities. What is an elite university? Well, actually there is, of course, no single definition of an elite university. But there are a number of groups, if you like, of universities in different countries that will identify themselves as the elite universities that comprise perhaps in people's minds of the best universities. Now, we've all heard of the Ivy League, that goes without saying. Many of you have also heard of the Russell Group University in the UK, which are made up of the leading research universities in the UK. Australia has what is known as the group of 8 universities. The name suggests there are 8 universities in that group. U15 is the Canadian group, the C9 is the China group, and Japan also has its own group of research universities. Now, it may come as a surprise to many of you to know that pathways do actually exist into some of these universities. But please remember, and this is quite an important point, that they're actually, despite these groups that do have some of the world's best universities, undoubtedly, there are actually a very large number of universities that feature in the world rankings that are not actually part of these groups that I've mentioned here. And many of these also do offer pathways. So let me give you an example. A lot of these universities in these groups, in the Australia group, in the UK group, do offer pathway programs. But there are some very highly ranked and leading universities that sit outside of these groups also that offer pathway programs. Examples in the US, Northeastern University, the University of South Florida, perhaps the University of Massachusetts, Boston. If we look at Canada, you have universities like Western Ontario or Manitoba. If you look at Australia, you've got UTS and La Trobe, and there are many, many other examples. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that elite universities do have pathway programs attached to them. But I think we shouldn't get too hung up on these groups. And of course, there are a segment of students who, for whatever reason, will be unable to make it to elite universities, but for whom pathways still make an excellent choice and an excellent way for them to enter universities. And there are hundreds upon hundreds of universities worldwide who can offer students pathway programs, perhaps not into the elite universities, but into the more modest universities that would suit particular types of students. Now, if I just pick a handful of examples from the UK to illustrate my point, and some of these will have January, in fact all of these will have January intakes. Let me give you examples perhaps of the University of Stirling, the University of Strathclyde, Anglia Ruskin University. All of these universities do have January intakes, and they all have pathway programs that will lead you eventually to get a good quality overseas education. Now, pathway programs start at different times of the year depending on the university and depending on the course. On this slide, we've listed the upcoming pathway opportunities. But it's important to remember here, so what you'll see is you'll see the intakes, you'll see the types of pathways, you'll see the subject areas, and you'll see the countries. Now what you should note here is that I have simply listed the forthcoming intakes. Obviously the most, the closest intake is the January intake. And the countries, though I've listed the USA, the UK and Australia, there are far more countries than are listed here. As I've mentioned previously, there are pathway programs into Canada, into Ireland, into Singapore, into Malaysia, into New Zealand, and the list goes on. Now, I have another question for you here. Again, I'd like you to mark your choices accordingly whilst I move on to the next slide. Now, for any students that are looking for a January intake, either into an elite university or into any other university, I suggest that you contact the Chopras so that we can advise you on the options available in all countries. But on your slide, you will see the different range of pathway opportunities that are available in the different countries and that are available in January. Now, once again, I'm going to ask you another couple of questions. So please take a moment to answer the questions that come on your screen. Okay. Now, moving on. There's one pathway opportunity that I'd like to talk about in particular and give a little bit of a focus to this afternoon. And that is what we're calling the TCIE NCUK International Year 1. Now, this program is delivered right here in India, and it is an example of a transnational pathway program, whereby students will study in India at the Chopras Institute of Education, and they will subsequently enter the second year of a business-related degree in the UK. The program is being offered in multiple cities. It's being offered in New Delhi, it's being offered in Bangalore, and it's being offered in Mumbai. And students will study the first year of a British degree here in India, and as I say, will then progress to the second year of a business-related degree in the UK, in a choice of one of 11 UK universities. Now, what you have in front of you is a list of the courses, the available options, and a list of the universities. So this International Year 1 program is specifically designed to allow second-year access to more than 35 business-related degrees, be that in accounting and finance, management, innovation, sustainability and entrepreneurship, supply chain management, marketing, economics, international business, the list goes on. And these are available in one of the 11 universities that you see on the screen in front of you. So students would effectively study the first year of their UK degree in India, and then would move to the UK to do the second and third year of their bachelor's degree. Now, during the first year, students would be given a solid foundation in the academic subject, as well as help in understanding the study methods of the UK education system. The students are taught an international curriculum using international teaching methods right from the word go. Now, the range of universities students can progress to is wide, and this range includes both top-ranking Russell Group institutions, and I've touched upon the Russell Group institutions in previous slides, as well as middle-market universities, and there is a university for everybody. So regardless of your ability, regardless of your academic grades, within the NCUK portfolio, there is a university to which you can progress. So, for students who are aiming at the elite universities, you may be targeting the universities such as the University of Manchester, the University of Sheffield, the University of Liverpool, Leeds, and for those perhaps who have more moderate Year 12 results, there are a wide range of other universities from which you can choose alongside Manchester Metropolitan, the University of Salford, Leeds Beckett, and many others. And I think the best part about this program is, or one of the best parts about this program, is that students can actually save up to 25 lakh rupees on the cost of entering these universities directly. So, what types of students might be interested in studying the International Year 1? Well, this type of program is ideal for those who want to start the second year of their undergraduate degree in September 2016. Now, why do I say that? I say that because there is an intake in January. So for those who may have missed the September intake for whatever reason, you can start the International Year 1 in January, and you can progress directly to the second year in one of the 11 universities in September 2016. Students perhaps who want a range of universities to choose from to progress to, I've mentioned that NCUK has 11 universities from which students can choose. So what they would do is do Year 1 in India starting in January 2016, and then make a choice from 11 universities in September 2016. And all students who pass the International Year 1 are guaranteed entry into one of the 11 universities. This type of program is also good for those perhaps who have not yet narrowed down their chosen business-related degree and still want some time to think. So you'll study your first year in India and then choose from more than 35 degree courses in the UK for the second year entry. And perhaps, critically, we've already touched on this, for those for whom finances may be a concern, and of course finances are a concern for everyone, but for those whose finances may be a little tight, then studying the International Year 1 in India means that you can make a significant cost saving than as compared to had you entered the university directly. Now, in terms of the entry requirements for the International Year 1, all students must have an average of 60% in their Year 12, but if you are aiming for an elite university, then 65% will get you into a number of the Russell Group universities. They are the top research universities in the UK. And 75% in Year 12 will get you into all of the Russell Group universities. Now, I should qualify my statement, and I qualify that by saying that whilst you are guaranteed entry into one university, you must pass your International Year 1 with a certain percentage in order to get into the Russell Group universities. Now, your percentage in your International Year 1 will determine which of the universities you will be eligible to progress into. So you will need to do well in your International Year 1 in order to get into the higher, in order to get into the Russell Group universities. In terms of the Ielts, we encourage all students to take an Ielts, but an equivalent of a minimum of 5.5 Ielts must be, all students must have that. Now, as I say, we encourage all our students to take an Ielts, and it must be of a level which is a 5.5. Now, what I'd like you to do is remember that there is an NCUK International Year 1 program starting in January, which leads to the second year of a bachelor's degree in the UK in September 2016. And for anybody who is interested in joining in September 2016, we would encourage you to come and talk to us so that we can talk to you about the opportunities that are available, be that the International Year 1, or be that an opportunity in different universities, different countries, or indeed different intakes. We have a range of different opportunities, a range of different pathway providers, a range of different universities, and a range of different intakes. So whatever your needs, please come and talk to us, and we can help you work through your education. So I think that's just a quick run through the presentation today. I hope we've managed to give you a clear picture of what pathways are and what they have to offer. Pathways are most certainly becoming increasingly popular as a method for gaining entry to overseas universities, and that too for very good reasons. So what I'd like to do now is open the floor for any questions that we may have. So, okay, let's see. Just one moment. I'm going to take a moment to look up some of these questions.
Hi, very good evening. This is Makanshu. I will assist you with the queries, whatever you have. So I can see there are some questions that come up. First of all, the question is, can I study music after a 10-year gap? So I believe this we need to discuss with our UCL team. We'll get back to you. Could please leave your email ID, your phone number. We will check to get back to you. Secondly, I can see there's a query that person asking, please tell us about on-campus going to CEG. Yeah, if you talk about CEG, it's kind of a foundation that you are getting, and where you can study foundation year, then you can progress into college university the first year. For information, in case you have around 60% for, let's say, 65%, so if you want to go to CEG, that is fine, but yes, you can do this NCEP course as well. That is also available. And the best part of the NCEP course is that you're saving your time. You can come to us, you can join us, and in September 2016, you can get into the second year of university.
Okay, I have a couple more questions here. I want engineering college details, Rajit. I think you're going to need to give us a little more information about that. Perhaps that you can, if you're still there, you can let us have some more details so that we can answer your question. But I have a couple of other questions here that have come in. Okay, how many hours of teaching will I receive on my course? The answer to that is students will have at least 20 hours of formal classes. But in addition, if you want to do well, students will be expected to spend approximately another 20 hours a week in independent study. I think whenever you are in university, whatever the number of hours that you need to study in class, you need to match that again with the equal number of hours outside of class. We have a question about after 12, if gaps, will the profile be accepted for NCUK? I think the answer to that is every application is assessed on its own merits. I cannot give you a definitive yes or no answer to that question, but we would certainly encourage you to submit an application. If you are interested in January intake, applications are still open right now, so please submit your application as soon as possible. We would certainly like to receive an application for you, and we would give it some serious consideration. Now we have a question about pathways and working part-time. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sumatanshu to answer this.
Hi, first of all, I think it's very interesting. In the UK, the first year will happen only in India. So yes, if you're studying in India, you are allowed to work. And if you're talking about if you're going to UK for pathways, in foundation year, you are not allowed to work part-time. But if you're going for diploma, yes, you are allowed to work 10 hours per week part-time. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So there's another question here about pathways and helping to develop the skills needed for university. I think I've already touched upon that actually in the presentation. And that essentially is that pathways are, of course, an ideal way to develop your skills. As I've already mentioned, the teaching methods in overseas universities are quite different to teaching methods in India, and therefore a pathway program is an ideal way for you to get that little bit of extra help and to brush up your study skills so that you can hit the ground running when you get into university. Be that the first year if you've done a foundation program, or be that the second year if you've done a diploma program. So the simple answer to your question about will it help you develop study skills is yes. Okay, let me see if there are any other questions. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here about master's programs. I'm going to leave those for now, but we will answer all of these questions about master's programs after the webinar has finished. Okay, there's another question about the International Year 1 and whether students can enter the International Year 1 without maths. The answer to that is yes. Students can apply for the International Year 1 without maths, but it may well restrict the number of courses that you can ultimately go on to, because, for instance, if you want to progress into the second year of an engineering degree, you would require maths. That's not for NCUK, of course, because the NCUK International Year 1 only does business, but I'm talking more generally. If you just focus on the International Year 1, if you do not have, you must have Year 10. If you do not have Year 12 maths, then there will be a range of programs open to you, but there may be a few programs that you would not be able to pursue if you don't have a maths background. Okay, I'm just looking at the rest of the questions here. Just one moment. Okay. Fine. So we have another question about after doing pathways, are you only guaranteed into one university, or can you go into multiple universities? Again, I think I've probably covered this partly in the presentation. Depends on what pathway program you're doing. Pathway programs do guarantee entry into a single university, wherever that single university may be it in the US, in the UK, in Australia. But it is also possible under certain circumstances for students to move into another country or even into another university that is not linked to that pathway, because universities worldwide do tend to recognize pathway programs. So whilst there is no guarantee, students very often can switch universities. Flowers, I can see that you've got a lot of questions here. We will be coming back to you later after the presentation is over with the answers to your very detailed questions. So please bear with us. We will come back to you later. If there are any other questions. Okay, what is the cost of the NCUK International Year 1? People are asking about the cost. The cost is 5,70,000 rupees. So there's the cost of studying the International Year 1. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of our questions now, unless anybody has anything else. No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar. There will be more webinars over the coming few months. So these will be advertised on our website, and we do hope that you will keep checking our website, which is www.thechopras.com. And we hope that you will join us again for our next webinar. Thank you very much.